You've been lied to about what makes a relationship healthy. You were told that being kind, patient, understanding makes someone love you more. It doesn't. In fact, one specific habit you've probably been proud of is slowly teaching your partner to lose respect for you. And the worst part? You don't even see it happening. You think you're being mature. You think you're being emotionally intelligent. You think you're doing the right thing. But what you're actually doing is training them to ignore your boundaries, training them to prioritize themselves over you, training them to walk all over you without consequences. And this is where it gets dangerous, because once someone learns they can get away with something, they don't stop. They escalate. Now here's the part that's going to bother you. This habit feels good in the moment. It makes you feel like the bigger person, the calmer one, the one in control. But in reality, it's the exact moment you start losing control. And before you dismiss this, thinking, "That's not me," ask yourself this: how many times have you stayed silent just to avoid conflict? How many times have you let something slide, even when it bothered you? How many times have you told yourself it's not a big deal, when it clearly was? Exactly. You're not avoiding problems, you're teaching someone how to treat you. But here's what you didn't notice. Every time you tolerate something you shouldn't, you send a signal. Not through words. Words don't matter here. Through behavior. And behavior is the only language people truly respect. You see, people don't decide how much to respect you based on what you say. They decide it based on what you allow. That's the first truth most people never understand, and it's costing them everything. Now, there are 3 specific ways this habit destroys your power in a relationship. The first one is subtle. The second one is irreversible if you let it go too far. And the third one is why people eventually stop valuing you entirely, even if they once loved you deeply. We'll get to that. But first, you need to understand something most people are too uncomfortable to admit. Respect is not given because you're nice. It's given because there are consequences to disrespecting you. Let that sink in. No consequences, no respect. It's that simple. And this is the part no one admits. When you constantly let things go, when you constantly understand, when you constantly give second chances, you're not being kind, you're removing consequences. And when there are no consequences, people test you. At first, it's small things, a dismissive comment, a broken promise, a slight shift in tone. You notice it, but you ignore it, because you don't want to seem overreactive, because you don't want to create tension, because you want to be the good partner. So you let it slide. And in that moment, something shifts, not in them, in the dynamic. Because now they've learned something powerful about you. They've learned that your boundaries are flexible, and flexible boundaries are not boundaries. They're suggestions, and suggestions can be ignored. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. You think they don't realize what they're doing. You think it's unconscious. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not. People are constantly scanning for where they stand in relation to you. Who has more leverage? Who tolerates more? Who needs the other more? This isn't romantic, it's psychological. And you're playing this game whether you like it or not. The question is, are you playing it well, or are you losing without realizing it? Because every time you choose comfort over confrontation, you lose a little ground. Every time you suppress what bothers you, you lower your value in their eyes. And every time you fail to enforce a boundary, you make it easier for them to cross it again. This isn't theory, this is how human behavior works. But here's the real trap. The longer you repeat this habit, the harder it becomes to reverse. Because once someone gets used to a version of you, they resist any change. Suddenly, when you finally speak up, you're the problem. You're different.
You're too sensitive. You're starting fights. Sound familiar? Good. It should. Because this is exactly how people get stuck in relationships where they feel invisible, disrespected, and slowly drained. And it all started with one habit, a habit that looked harmless, a habit that felt right, a habit you've probably been repeating for years. But we're not done, because what this habit does next is where most people completely lose their power. And once that happens, getting it back becomes a different game entirely.
So now let's go deeper. Because what you've seen so far is just the surface. The real damage of this habit doesn't show up immediately. It builds quietly underneath everything until one day you realize something feels off, but you can't explain why. This is where most people start blaming communication issues. It's not communication, it's positioning, and you've already given yours away. Here's the second truth. Attraction and respect don't operate on what's fair, they operate on what's reinforced. Read that again. Not what's right, not what's logical, not what's emotionally healthy, what's reinforced. And this is where your habit becomes dangerous. Because every time you tolerate behavior that bothers you without consequence, you reinforce it. You make it stronger, you make it repeat, and you make it harder to stop later. But here's what you didn't notice. Reinforcement doesn't just change their behavior, it changes how they see you. And once perception shifts, everything else follows. This is the part no one warns you about. At first, they might even appreciate your patience. They might think, wow, they're so understanding. But over time, that admiration turns into something else. Comfort. And comfort, when it comes without boundaries, turns into disregard. And this is where it gets dangerous. Because now they're no longer thinking, I should be careful not to upset them. They're thinking, they'll be fine no matter what I do. That single shift is the beginning of the end of your authority in the relationship. You've become predictable, and predictability without strength is weakness. Now let's expose the second way this habit destroys your power. It kills emotional impact. You see, emotions only carry weight when they're backed by action. Anyone can say they're hurt. Anyone can say they're upset. But if nothing happens after that, those words lose value fast. Think about it. If every time your partner crosses a line, you talk about it, express it, explain it, but then do nothing, what have you actually done? You've trained them to ignore your emotions. Not intentionally, but effectively. And this is the part that stings. You think expressing your feelings is enough. It's not. Expression without enforcement is noise, and noise gets tuned out, slowly at first, then completely. But here's where it gets worse. The more you talk without acting, the less they take you seriously, and eventually they stop reacting altogether. That moment when you're explaining how something hurt you and they look bored, distracted, or even slightly annoyed, that didn't happen overnight. That was built. Repetition after repetition of you showing emotion without consequence. And now, your emotional signals mean nothing. That's not cruelty, that's conditioning, and you did the conditioning. But here's the real psychological shift that traps you. Once your emotions lose impact, you start increasing intensity. You try to explain more, you try to be clearer, you try to make them understand. But all you're doing is talking louder in a room where no one is listening. And this is where people break. Because now you feel unheard, disrespected, invisible. But instead of changing strategy, you double down on the same behavior that caused it. More explaining, more patience, more tolerance, and less respect. Now here comes the part most people refuse to accept. Your partner isn't confused, they're calibrated. They know exactly how far they can go with you because you've shown them repeatedly. And once someone knows your limits,
They operate comfortably within them, even if those limits are far below what you deserve. And this is why talking it out stops working at a certain point. Because the issue is no longer misunderstanding, it's a lack of consequence, and no amount of communication fixes that. Now pause for a second. Think about your own relationship. Be honest. Where have you been over-explaining instead of enforcing? Where have you been hoping they'll understand instead of making them feel the impact? Don't answer out loud, just feel it. Because most people won't admit this. If you see it clearly, comment, "I see the pattern." Not for me, for you. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And that's where things start to change. But we're not done. Because the third effect of this habit is where people lose something much harder to recover. Not just respect, not just authority, but value. And once that drops, everything else starts collapsing.
But before we go any further, I need to tell you something important. There are certain psychological truths, raw, unfiltered, and dangerous that I cannot reveal on YouTube, not because they're false, but because they work too well. If you truly want to understand how power, control, and human nature operate beneath the surface, you need access to what's hidden. I've shared those deeper insights on my Telegram channel, the kind that shifts how you see people forever. If you're ready for that level of awareness, the link is in the description and pinned comment. Join only if you're ready to see what most people are never meant to understand. Now, let's get back to the video. So we reach the point most people never recover from, because this is where the damage stops being subtle and starts becoming structural. Up until now, you've been losing ground. Here, you lose position. And once your position drops in someone's mind, everything you say, everything you do, everything you feel gets filtered through that lower status. This is the third effect, the one that quietly destroys your value. And it starts with something almost invisible: familiarity. Not the kind that builds connection, the kind that removes tension. Because tension is what keeps people alert to you. It's what makes them think twice before crossing a line. It's what gives your presence weight. But when you tolerate too much, when you explain instead of enforce, when you allow without consequence, you don't just lose respect, you become safe, predictable, easy. And this is the part no one admits. Being easy to deal with is not always a strength. Sometimes it's the exact reason people stop taking you seriously. And this is where it gets dangerous. Because once someone sees you as easy, they stop investing effort. They stop being careful. They stop trying to maintain your perception of them. Why would they? You've already shown them. There's nothing to lose. Now here's the shift that changes everything. Value in a relationship is not just about what you give. It's about what can be lost. Let that sit for a second. If there's no risk of losing you, there's no pressure to keep you. And pressure is what maintains effort. Without it, effort fades, slowly, quietly, until one day you're the one trying harder, caring more, thinking more, while they move through the relationship like it's guaranteed. That's not love, that's imbalance. And imbalance always favors the one who cares less. Now here's where most people make the biggest mistake. They notice the imbalance and they try to fix it by giving more attention, more affection, more understanding, hoping it will bring things back. It doesn't. It accelerates the loss, because now you're confirming something in their mind. You need them more than they need you. And the moment that belief locks in, your value drops again. This is the part that hurts your ego, because you've been telling yourself a story. I'm the better partner. I'm the one holding this together. I'm the one doing things right. But in the game of human behavior, effort without leverage doesn't increase value. It decreases it, because it signals dependence, and dependence is never respected. Now here's the moment everything clicks. Your partner doesn't value you based on how much you give. They value you based on how replaceable you appear. Harsh, but real. If your behavior signals that you'll stay no matter what, that you'll tolerate almost anything, that you won't enforce consequences, then in their mind, you're not going anywhere.
And what doesn't go anywhere doesn't need to be protected. This is the part no one wants to hear. You trained them to believe losing you is not a real possibility. And once that belief settles in, they relax. Not into love, into complacency. And complacency kills attraction faster than conflict ever could. Now pause. Look at your situation again, not emotionally, strategically. Where have you removed all risk for them? Where have you made yourself too available, too forgiving, too predictable? Don't justify it, don't soften it, just see it. Because most people won't. Most people will hear this, feel uncomfortable, and go back to doing the same thing. If you're not one of them, prove it. Comment, "No more free passes." Not as motivation, as a line in the sand. Because once you reach this stage, fixing it requires something most people are afraid to do. Not communicate better, not love harder, but shift the entire dynamic. And that shift feels dangerous because it involves risk, real risk, the kind where you might actually lose the person. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. If the only way to keep someone is to tolerate being disrespected, you don't have them. You're just holding on to the illusion of them. And illusions don't hold power. But we're not done yet, because now you'll see exactly how to break this pattern, not with words, but with moves, the kind that reset perception, rebuild respect, and force a new reality. And most people won't have the discipline to do it.
This is the part most people avoid, because this is where everything stops being theory and starts becoming action. And action has consequences, real ones. You might lose comfort, you might trigger conflict, you might even risk the relationship itself. But understand this clearly. If a relationship only works when you stay small, it was never working. You were just maintaining it. And that ends here. The pattern you've been stuck in doesn't break with better communication, it breaks with disruption. A shift so clear, so undeniable, that it forces the other person to recalibrate how they see you. Not slowly, immediately. And this is the first move. You stop rewarding what you don't respect. Completely. No explanations, no emotional speeches, no long conversations trying to make them understand. Just absence of reward. Because attention, affection, emotional availability, those are rewards. And you've been giving them freely, even when they weren't earned, even when they were acting in ways that lowered your value. That ends. Now here's where most people fail. They think this means becoming cold, distant, pretending not to care. That's weak. That's reactive. This is not about playing games. This is about controlling reinforcement. You give fully when behavior aligns. You withdraw when it doesn't. Clean, precise, consistent. And this is where it gets dangerous. Because the moment you do this, you disrupt the pattern they've gotten comfortable with. And people don't like losing access to something they took for granted. So they test you. They push. They question the change. You've changed. You're acting different. What's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong. For the first time, you're aligned. This is the second move. You stop explaining your boundaries and start demonstrating them. Because explanations invite negotiation. Demonstration ends it. If something crosses a line, you don't argue about it. You don't debate it. You respond with action. Less time, less access, less energy. Not as punishment, as consequence. And here's the key. You don't announce it. You let them feel it. Because people don't learn from what you say. They learn from what changes when they act a certain way. And this is the part that separates people who regain power from those who stay stuck. Consistency, not intensity. You don't explode one day and go back to normal the next. That destroys credibility. You become stable in your standards, predictable in your enforcement, and suddenly the dynamic starts shifting. Slowly at first, then all at once. Because now there is risk. Now they're thinking, if I keep doing this, I might actually lose them. And that thought is what reactivates respect. But here's the truth most people won't accept. Sometimes they won't adjust. Sometimes they've gotten so used to the old version of you that they reject the new one. They resist, they withdraw, they leave. And this is where your real test begins. Because if you break here, if you go back to old patterns just to keep them, you confirm everything they believed about you, that your boundaries aren't real, that your standards are temporary, that you will fold. And once that happens, you don't get another chance. But if you hold, if you stay consistent, if you're willing to lose what disrespects you, something shifts. Either they rise to meet your new standard, or they remove themselves. Both outcomes are wins, because you've removed the one thing that was destroying you, your tolerance for what you shouldn't accept. Now understand this, most people will hear this, agree with it, and do nothing. Because change requires discomfort, and discomfort feels like loss. But it's not loss, it's correction. You're not losing them, you're losing a version of the relationship that was built on your silence, on your patience, on your willingness to be overlooked. And that version needed to die, so something stronger could replace it. Now here's where I leave you, not with motivation, with a choice. You can go back to being understood but not respected, or you can become respected, even if it means being misunderstood. Most people already chose, that's why they're stuck. If you're not one of them, prove it. Comment the one boundary you will never let slide again, not for validation, for commitment. And if you actually understand what was said here, if you see the pattern, the game, the leverage, then you already know what to do next. You don't need reminders, you need discipline. Only a few people will apply this. If you're one of them, you won't need luck, you'll have control. Or stay the same. That's what most people choose.